Leaders have layers, shaped by stories and struggles that are often unseen. In each episode, we peel back those layers, hearing from leaders whose paths may look nothing like yours, yet whose insights will feel strikingly relevant. You'll walk away with fresh eyes, ready to disrupt the status quo. This is Outsider Unscripted.
Hi, welcome to Outsider Unscripted. I'm Sadie Such, your host for today, and today we're talking with Sharla Brumm. She's a wife of 37 years, a mom of 3 adult children, and a professional in the home organization business. So Sharla, we're so grateful you're here today. We're excited to hear more about you, and you're in a transitional time now from this home organization business. So we'd love to hear just where you're at right now and dive a little bit more into your story.
Okay, yeah. Hi, thanks for having me. Um, so I have been working in the home organization business. For some of you who don't maybe know what that is, we go into people's homes and we try to make their spaces more seamless and
Mm-hmm.
um, useful, purposeful, and more streamlined. So that
Mm-hmm.
could be anything from kitchens to closets to garages. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So how long have you been in that business? Have you done this your whole life, or give us a little rundown? Because we know you're in transition now. So,
yeah. So funny you asked that. Um, because I feel like I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years.
mhm,
And obviously I feel like at least in my life as a mom, I liked organization. I liked things orderly and neat and um kind of like a scheduled person. Anything kind of chaotic made me feel stressed in life.
mm,
And so I feel like I've always kind of had that in me. I just didn't quite realize it at the time. And then as my kids grew up and didn't need my services as much, um, I started doing it just for some friends on the side. I actually helped some friends move and pack. And I kept being told by people, oh, you're really good at this. Have you ever thought of doing this as a business? And I'm like, what? Like organizing, packing? Not really.
yeah,
And so I actually did work for a couple of women as I would say kind of like a house manager type job. And it just wasn't really the amount of hours I wanted. And I was talking with a really good friend of mine, and she was like, hey, I'm working for this professional organizing company in town, and you should apply. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. And so, basically told me what they do. And I was like, that sounds like my dream job. Like,
hmm,
amazing. So I applied and was hired. And so that was about 4 years ago.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome to us, to
Yeah.
especially to see your skills that you were using and growing in, and then find a professional career to
Hmm.
go into from that. So, where are you at now? You had 4 years in that. Can you give us a little bit of the maybe transition time that you're in right now?
Yeah. So, like you said, I was doing that for 4 years. And then I would say probably during the last year, I started having a lot of physical pain doing
Mm,
my job because it is a very physical job. And um, I was diagnosed with pretty moderate arthritis in both of my elbows. And I had developed chronic tendonitis from,
mm,
I guess, from the arthritis. And so it was just causing me a lot of physical pain, like chronic nonstop pain. So I had a lot of chronic pain. So I went to the doctor, and basically he told me, for your age and where you're at, this isn't good. And we can't heal the damage that's already been done. So
mm,
whatever is working for your life isn't working for your life, basically. Whatever you're doing isn't working for your life. And I kind of left that appointment like so almost like in shock of like, what does that mean? What are you telling me? That what I'm doing isn't working for my life. Like, this is my life right now. This is what I do. And so he's like, well, I don't want to tell anyone they can't work, but maybe you need to reinvent how you do your work
Hmm.
and what that looks like. Um, so I left that appointment and I went back to my job that day and I pretty much ignored what he said. I'm like, well, I like my job and I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and adapt and maybe adjust how I do it physically in a physical manner and go from there. And so I probably spent the next 4 months continuing to work,
Oh.
and the pain was getting worse. And then I went and ended up having some procedures done, some PRP injections, and I won't bore you with the details of what all I had done, but and had to take some time off work. And I thought during that time, it would be like, oh, this is going to be really good for me. I'm going to take time off. I'm going to rest. I'm going to heal. I'm going to get better. And then I'm going to go back to work. And that
Hmm.
was my mindset. It was never like, oh, you're having these procedures done. You're going to stay at home and rest. And you may not go back to work. You may need to think of something different. Like the doctor said, reinvent yourself another way. Um,
Yeah.
that that wasn't something I wanted to think about in my time off. It was more so this, I felt this pressure and kind of this inside tension of like, I've got to get better. I've got to heal. I've got to get back to work. Um
Hmm.
and so it's a very frustrating time because I, number one, couldn't do anything physically with my arms for like 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It it was really hard. Um But I just I didn't wanna go there mentally,
Hmm.
and so I kind of just lived in this state of tension and frustration with myself, with my body, and I think mentally even knowing, like, deep down inside, like, you are not addressing the issue at hand here, you're as my husband would say, "You are in the 7 stages of grief." And I didn't wanna hear that. So, um, I did end up going back to work, and I had talked to my boss and just told her, I need to adjust how I work and maybe not do some of the harder, like garages or things that took a lot of heavy lifting, and continued to work and continued to have chronic pain
Hmm.
after all these procedures and things I've chased and done. So I had to go back to my follow-up appointment, and he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Not good."
Yeah.
And it was like I wanted him to tell me, "Oh, we have something more we can do for you."
Yeah.
And that was, I think, what I expected to hear, like, "We have other options." And he basically said, "I I feel so bad saying this to you. Like I said, I don't ever wanna tell someone they can't work, but," he's like, "if you want to have good use of your arms." He's like, "We don't have good elbow replacements. That
Hmm.
doesn't exist. Um, you wanna hold your grandbabies and enjoy them when you
Yeah.
have them. Um, you need to do something different with your life, and you can continue, but you have to decide if the chronic pain and
Yeah.
continuing to cause further damage to your joints is worth it." And so that was kind of like my wake up moment,
Hmm.
and basically, that's what he was trying to say to me, I think, in the very first appointment, but I wasn't, like, ready to hear that. I didn't wanna hear that, and I still didn't wanna hear it. Um, but I think this
Yeah.
time it finally, like, clicked with me, like, yes, you can't keep living in denial, and you've gotta stop this crazy just, I don't know, this tension that I felt I was living in, like, I was living in this terrible limbo, and thinking I could just keep my life how it was. So now I'm not working. I did quit my job, but it's been a process. It's been really difficult for me, trying to figure out what is next in my
Mhm.
life. Um, and how can I reinvent myself using the skills that I know and that I love. I derive enjoyment from it. I find purpose in it. How does that all fit into something different now?
Yeah. That sounds like it's been a that would be a very confusing journey, and I
Yeah.
understand. I would feel that similar tension of, like, you have this job that you love, and this is your dream job, and now your body is like, "No." And you're like, we're
Yeah.
okay. I've
Yeah.
accomplished a lot. I can do a lot. I can handle pain." But then having to kind of face that reality would
hmm
be really hard.
Yeah.
And so how are you said how long ago did you quit your job? How long have you kind of been
Um,
in this?
I quit my job in January,
Okay.
and I've kind of just spent. I just came back from a 2 week, kind of like vacation. Uh,
Yeah.
kind of just a time to kind of, I don't know, get out of here, get a change of scenery. Uh, I thought maybe I would spend more time, like, thinking about my future while I was on vacation, but I did have my daughter with me, so
Yeah.
that didn't really happen. So I
Yeah.
think in some ways I'm still in the process of grieving.
Mhm.
And I think in January I was hoping like, "Oh, I'm gonna get this figured out." And in a couple months or in 3 months, I'm gonna know. Like, it's just gonna be, you know, I'll figure it out. And I haven't yet. So, I think that's kind of the frustrating part. And it's interesting because, like, when my husband was speaking to me, telling me, "Oh, I really think you're in the kind of the 7 steps of grief." And I'm like, "Well, that's silly. That's more for people who have really traumatic, things happening to them, and it's not like I wanted to look at my situation as traumatic. There's so many worse things in life than losing your dream job, in the grand scheme of things. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because I look at like, oh, first you have shock. And I think that was my initial reaction, to my news is like, I was in shock. And, you know, then after that, it's like you're in denial. Well, that's interesting, I was in denial. I kept working. I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
Then I became angry. And that happened more when I finally quit my job and just feeling really upset and angry, like thinking, I finally found something I love that I'm passionate about. That's, like I said, like my dream job that I really felt gave me purpose, where I am in my life right now. Um, and so I'm still angry. It is tempering a little bit. But if
Yeah.
I think too much about it, it still kind of makes me angry. And then the bargaining and
Mhm.
thinking, I still have thoughts of, well, maybe I still could do this somehow. Maybe, I don't know. Like I'm just still trying to like bargain in my mind that
Mhm.
something is still going to happen or work out with that. And then depression. And so those two areas, I think the anger and the depression is kind of still where I'm at in this
Mhm.
stage. Um, and the next two would be testing and acceptance. So I'm not quite at the testing stage. And I think that is the part that seems overwhelming to me
Hmm.
and brings me kind of, I don't want to say anxiety, but just like the unknown. And how does
Yeah.
this all play out? I have a lot of strengths, and my strengths are definitely in, organizing and also like relational. Um, my husband and I have spent the last, I would say, 25 years. We do premarital mentoring for couples. And then
Mhm.
we've also done mentoring for couples in crisis. So it's interesting because I feel like even in that sense, it's like I'm organizing people's lives, you know?
Yeah.
So it still kind of fits into that. It's just in a different way. And so I have kind of thought about that. That's been a thought of maybe I could transition into something more like life coaching, or if I
Mhm.
can't organize people's things, maybe I can help organize their thoughts or their
Yeah.
feelings. But I think it's just the whole, what does that look like? How do I get there? What's the path? Um,
Mhm.
that's that's where I'm stuck, so
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So, I love you explaining the 7 steps of grief and, like, where you're at, so thank you for being
Mhm.
vulnerable about that. What is you mentioned, like, the testing part, it brings you anxiety. Like, it's what you mentioned, it's, like, because of the unknown. Did you have any more thoughts on what comes up for you when you think about that?
I think it's probably more just like the business aspect, um, of how to create a business doing that.
Mm.
Um, I'm not the type of personality, or I should say maybe one of my strengths would not be like making things happen, you
Mm.
know? Like I can envision something and I can see a space and know how to fix it and make it pretty. But to actually think of like starting a business and promoting myself, that I'm I lack confidence. I'm not sure how to do that.
Yeah.
Or it's almost like I don't want to do it. And I think that's part of still where I'm struggling, is kind of that, still like in the denial sense of like, I was happy doing what I was doing. I don't want to do this. Like I have all these ideas, but in the end, I don't really want to do it because I want to do what I was doing. And
Yeah.
and that's where the tension lies within me. And
Yeah.
it's trying to come to the point where it's like, but you can do something else. You're capable of doing something else. And it's interesting. I was listening to another podcast, and I wish I could remember the woman's name who said this. So it's not my quote, it's hers, but
Yeah.
she was talking about grief. So the woman had said, in speaking in the matter of grief, and anger, it's like sometimes a roadblock comes up and in life, and or like a detour basically, and we see it as a roadblock in our
Mm.
lives. And a lot of times it's actually a shortcut to where you need to go. And that really struck me when she said that, because I think I've been looking at my situation, this detour of my life as a roadblock. And
Yeah.
it's like looking around like I can't get out of this roadblock. I am stuck. I'm stuck in traffic here. And
Yeah.
there's no way out. And but that actually there maybe is a way out. And maybe it's a shortcut to where I'm actually supposed to be. Um So there's a
Yeah.
flicker of hope there hearing that, but I still feel kinda, like, stuck in a roadblock.
Yeah, well, from what you were sharing, I was thinking when you said, "I don't even know if I want to do the next thing,"
Yeah.
because if there's this grief still, like anger of like, this is what I wanted, that would be hard to kind of move forward with anything
Mhm.
because the feelings are still there. I've definitely related with that, and I love the quote that she shared about the roadblock. We see it as a roadblock, but really it's like a detour to, like, what it
Mhm.
is, but it can be so hard, like you're saying, you're in it, you're like, "I don't know if I can see it, but I want a glimmer of that," and how hard and how relatable that is to so many people, from myself, and of, like, where we hit these things and it's not what we wanted, it's there was something so good, and it's hard to think of a different way and then grieve the hope and the story and the reality of that to then kind of move forward. So and it's so complicated because you can't just be like, oh yeah, because there's so
Yeah,
many layers. Yeah.
sure. And I think for some people, like I have a girlfriend, and she's so positive, and her personality type is just, oh, well, if that doesn't work, just do something else. Like, this is like the best thing that could happen to you. Um, and it's like, I don't really want to hear that though. Like, cause I don't see it the way you see it. And I think it's trying to change, your mental status or how you view something and looking at it from a different perspective. And it's interesting because it's easy to tell somebody that, especially, in mentoring couples and stuff. It's like you're always trying to offer a different perspective for them,
Mm-hmm.
to filter things through a different filter, because it's so easy to, we all have filters in our brain, and it's like we have these pathways, and the information comes in, and it always goes through that same filter. And so we're processing things, through the same filter. And it's like, you know what? Your filter is clogged with a bunch of coffee grounds right now, and
Yeah.
you need to clean it out. You need to change it, and you need to be filtering it differently. And I think it's easy to tell someone else that. It's easy to give someone else maybe a different perspective of how to look at something. But then when it becomes your issue, then it's like, oh, wow, you know,
Yeah.
this
It's not
isn't
so
this
easy, I
isn't
guess.
fun. This isn't fun. Um, I liked
Yeah.
the coffee flavor I was drinking, and I don't want to change.
Yeah. I like my filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having experiencing that, how is that? I guess. Like, what are you learning from being in that position now?
That's a really good question. Um, because I'm still feeling like I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm learning that I need to have more confidence in myself.
Mm.
Um, it's interesting because, in thinking of like leadership, it's like feeling like when you're needing to start something new, it like requires almost like leadership abilities, because it's like you got to go somewhere, but
Yeah.
but you sense you lack that. Like, my leadership styles are much different than somebody who's like, they see a path and it's like, oh, I'm on it, and I'm going to
Mhm.
lead the way for myself. Like, so
Yeah. So what your leadership styles you're feeling right now, like what you may need to do, it feels like, oh, I'm not good at this. My leadership styles are different. And then maybe it's kind of this, how do I this
yeah.
are you I don't know if you're telling yourself, I can't do this, this is not who I am, or this I'm not that type of person to do this,
Hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for part 1 of this series. Tune in next week for the continued conversation. Thanks for joining us today. Follow along on our YouTube where we release our episodes early. We hope today's conversation inspired you, and we'd love to hear what insights you took away. So please comment below, and we look forward to seeing you next time.